Welcome to the Project Management Professional Training course. We're going to be going through some modules. Our startup module today will be the broad overview of project management. Now, we want to understand the basic concepts that guides project management and how you can be able to develop the necessary skill set required to manage projects effectively and efficiently. So let's quickly get into the course. The first thing we're going to be looking at is what a project is. What is a project? Now, you cannot manage projects without understanding projects. Of course, you cannot be a good project manager until you have a very good understanding of what a project is. So what is a project? Most of us have been into projects before now. Maybe when you were in school, you were part of a project team. You were given an individual project to handle, and you were able to produce a certain kind of results within a certain time limit. You were also given a scope. You're also given a level of concentration in terms of where and how the particular project ought to be done. Now, when you go to organizations, you talk about multinational organizations, small and medium scale enterprises, MSMEs, and what have you. Or maybe you talk about Globalcom, Microsoft, talk about maybe Apple and what have you. Now, these organizations, they do their job in two ways. Their primary goal is to provide solutions to the problems of their clients. Every company exists to provide solutions, to produce results. Now, but these solutions are usually produced either through projects or through operations. Now, it's important to understand these basic facts. You know, that when you see a company engaging into economic activities, commercial activities, social activities, it's either it's a project or it's an operation. So I will get into explaining the differences between a project and an operation, and also how you can be able to deploy the necessary skills in managing your project effectively. So what is a project? A project is defined as a temporary endeavor that is undertaken to produce a unique product or service. So a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product or service. So you understand that when you are given a job to do as a project manager in your discipline, in your career, in your job, you are expected to create a solution. And that solution sometimes, have a characteristics of being temporary. Now, let's explain these two key words so that we can understand it better. Now, the first thing is projects are temporary. What does it mean? Does it mean that the results do not last? No. Does it mean that the jobs you engage in as projects do not take a long time? Not at all. A project can last for 4 years. That could be 10 years project. There could be 2 years project. That could be 2 weeks project. So it's not about timing. It's about having a fixed start time and a fixed end time. What it means is that projects do not run forever. In other words, they will have certain times when the results will be expected, and the deliverables utilized by the stakeholder, who is the end user of the results of the project. So projects are temporary. It means you have a job to do, you have an assignment to carry out in your office, in your work, or somebody asks you to do something as an entrepreneur, and you want to get that job done within a start date and an end date. It means you are in a project. Number two, it means projects are unique. Unique talks about specialty, producing special results. Results that do not look like other results of operations in the organization. Do you understand that? So when you are told, for example, you got a job with, let's say, Globalcom, and you were working in the, say, human resource department, all right? And you were given a particular task to recruit, say, 50 ad hoc staff that would do a particular job, like say ensuring that everyone within Nigeria have completely, linked up their NIN number to their SIM card number, right? And that project should be done within 1 month, and you're part of the team. You are producing something unique. You are producing something special. So that is why it's a project. And sometimes, or most often than not, projects will lead to operation. So let's look at this. Differences between projects and operation. There's a thin line. The functions could overlap. For example, you can find out that both of them involve people. Are you seeing that? Operations are things you do consistently. Are things you do all like a routine. You do the same thing all the time, sometimes without even thinking, because you are used to what you do. It's an operation. It runs. Organizations doing the same thing. But when you need to do something different that gives you a goal that is different from the usual goals you have always achieved in your office, that is a project. So both of them involve people. Both projects and operations, they are also limited in resources. Of course, we know that. And of course, they are managed by someone. We have the project manager that manages a project. Then we have the operations manager that manages an operation, Now, let's look at the differences. Projects and operations are not the same. You need to understand that. Their characteristics are not the same. The first thing you notice is that projects have a fixed start date and a fixed end date, while operations are continuous. What does it mean? Every project will have a time it will start, and will have a time the results will be delivered to the stakeholders. While operations, of course, are things you have to do continuously. We're going to look at some examples to drive home the point. Now, the second thing you notice here is that projects will produce unique and special results, special deliverables, while operations will give you the same deliverables. All right, let's look at examples of projects and operations. Of course, I'm going to give you this as an assignment, to think about possible examples and possible options that have the similarity or similitude of a project, so that you can easily identify one and know how to deploy the necessary skills. Okay, now let's take this example. You were given a particular assignment or responsibility to move down to let's say, to Accra, Ghana, and ensure that every household in Accra, Ghana has a solar-powered electricity source. In other words, the government of Ghana wants to remove everybody in Accra from the national grid, and they want people to have solar energy. And your job is to go down to Accra. You have been contracted by the government of Ghana in conjunction with other consultants who are also citizens of Ghana, but you are brought in as an external, a consultant or external person vis-a-vis your organization, and you're part of the team. Now, when you get to Ghana to do that job, that particular job would last for 6 months, and you're supposed to produce a very unique result where people do not need to get connected to the national grid. They have solar installed already in their streets, in their houses, and they are good to go. That is an example of a project. All right? Now, let's take another example. You got a job with Transcorp Hilton in Abuja, and you were asked to, work in the foreign guest department, or maybe food and beverage department, right? And your job sometimes is to attend to foreign guests who actually came into Nigeria or came into your country from other countries of the world. As soon as they came into the Hilton, the first information you were given was to set up a meeting where they will have a brief meeting for 1 hour, and maybe they have brief luncheon around 4 p.m. right? Now, this particular organization do not want you to just give them any kind of meeting setup. They have a particular design they have in their mind. That is how their meeting setups are usually done. Now, your boss calls you, who's the manager of that department, and say, hey, how are you doing? Please make sure that you get this meeting set by 4 p.m. We have some guests already in the house, and they need to have a special meeting, and of course, they need to also eat as well. Now, this is your job. Your job has always been, all right, to take care of guests. But in this particular situation, your boss gave you a specific and a special instruction to produce something special. If I ask you now, what do you think this scenario is? Is it a project or an operation? Well, you will say, some will say it's a project, some will say it's an operation. Now, for those who will say it's an operation, they'll say, well, since it is what you always do, because it is your job, it's your job description, it's the reason for which you were employed in that organization. Another group will say it's a project. Why is it a project? Because there is specificity of timing, and there's also a unique arrangement you should make. So how do we differentiate this? What do we call this exactly? Very quickly, that particular scenario is a project within an operation. So what does it mean? You can be handling operations in your organization, and in the midst of the operation, a specific instruction will be given in order to achieve a very important goal that has a deadline. And that particular goal sometimes usually produces, unique results and different results from other results of the organization. So it is important to understand that. Now, so there's countless examples. You work in the manufacturing firm, you produce drugs, maybe you studied engineering or something, or you studied medical lab science, or you're a pharmacist, right? And you got a job in May and Baker, and you worked in the production department, and suddenly a client sends a request that they want about 50-foot container, all right, 40-foot container, beg your pardon, and they want 40-foot container of a particular brand of malaria drugs, and that brand, you do not have it. It has special content that can be able to deal with, very resistant malaria parasites, and they spelled out the conditions and the criteria, and they gave it to your organization, and you are part of the team that will do all the researches, produce the pilots of that particular drug before you go into mass production. Now, what is that job? That is a project. Do you understand that? Your job is in the production department, but this is a specific request from a specific client who wants a specific product, and therefore you must deploy specific skills. That is what we are talking about, project management. Okay, now, project management or projects, secondly, like you can see on your screen, they produce unique results. I hope you're following me. They produce what? Unique results. Operations produce the same result. We are not in any way saying that what project produces is more valuable than what operations produces. No, that's not what we're saying. We're simply saying that when you're handling a project, you are expected to understand your result will usually be unique. So in other words, you must deploy some unique skills to ensure that they are produced in a unique way. Why would you do that? Because most often than not, projects will lead to operations. Let me say that again. Most often than not, over 80%, projects usually lead to operations. Because when a project succeeds, it can be translated into operations. A simple example is a real estate organization who completes, say, 200 units of 5-bedroom duplexes and terraces and maybe 20 block of flats, right? When that estate is fully occupied, completely sold out, what will they do next? They will transit into operations. They will start managing the facility, and that is where you have the word facility management. Is a kind of operations management. It is not project management. Project management is the construction, the fixing, the accomplishment of the goals within the development and construction of the estate. When the estate is done, it now gets translated into operations. Do you understand that now? Good. So we are good to go. Let's define the word project management. Are you still there? Good. Now, project management simply means the process of planning, right? Look at it here. Supervising, are you following? Control or controlling of the work required to complete the project goal. Now, projects ought to be managed. I will tell you why as we go down. Because if you don't manage projects effectively, you can't get the unique results. They must be managed. And in managing projects, you must plan, you must supervise, you must control, and of course, the goal must be accomplished. Look at the second definition. Project management also means the process by which organizations move from their current state to their future state. You know what this means? Every company at every point in time in their business history have always and will always engage in project management. Why? There is no moving into the future until projects are embarked upon. So when you are going to manage project organizations, you are simply trying to create a scenario that will project that organization into their desired future. In fact, you can call it innovation management. Because I give you an example. I don't want you to quote me, you can do your research. Some people had the opportunity of working in certain organizations that are 90% project oriented, right? Now, by the time they were done with those experiences and developed practical, skills on the job, most of those individuals translated that skill into operations. For example, you get into the lab, you want to find out what will happen if you decide to mix milk and something like cocoa or Bonvita. You put them together so that people don't need to, take milk here and take sugar here and take milk there to reduce that timing. And you have done the research, you have looked at the quantification, and it took you like 6 months with your team to know how you can put desired quantity of these 3 components into one place. So that people don't just take milk, take sugar, take this. The time will be wasted. And of course, sometimes even managing the 3 components could be difficult. Sometimes the milk is finished. Another time, Bonvita is everywhere. Maybe Milo is so much. Then the sugar is exhausted. The 3 could be combined. And it will be perfectly appreciated by the customer, the end user. Now, when this is done, and the project time has elapsed and the project result has been delivered to the stakeholders, the moment it gets to the market, right, and the customers begins to appreciate the combination, the innovation, and demand begins to grow, what happens? It turns into an operation. You now see the company producing massive quantity of that product. So in order to move into your future, you need to engage in projects. Because if projects fall through, if they go through and they break through, they usually break into operations. Okay, now let's look at this now. Look at this now. Basic facts about projects. There are things you must understand about projects. Let's look at these 4 things, all right? 1, projects usually fail at the beginning, not at the end. Can you just think about that? You know what? Because most times when you start projects, the pressure is usually high at the beginning. People don't even know where to start from. Sometimes beginning a project could be very, very, hectic. It could be weighty. It could be so disheartening, maybe discouraging. Several tools and instruments will not be available. So beginning of projects are usually very critical. If projects don't fail at the starting, it's difficult, most often than not, statistically speaking, for the project to fail at the end. Do you understand that? So if you have a project job to do, start early. Do well early. I'm not saying that you do well at early point will guarantee your ending point. No. But it's better to do well at the beginning because you don't know what the end will likely to be. Do you understand what I'm saying now? Number 2, the cost will increase at the end, not at the beginning. Towards the end of the project, you will spend more at finishing point, right? Because at that point in time, you have to pay, you have to attend to human resources, you have to look at stakeholders' interests and make sure everybody is settled. So at the end of the project, you need a lot of money. So money or cost will increase. Number 3, the further a project is from completion, the higher the risk. The more you delay a project to completion, the higher the risk. What it means is very simple. Whatever that ought to be done tomorrow should be done today. Because factors could change. Economics, econometrics or economic metrics could change. Financial indices could change. Stakeholders' expectation could change. So if you see people delaying projects, of course, they are creating risk. All right? So number 4, changes can occur at the beginning, not at the end. So if you want to change anything in your project, change it at the beginning. It's easier. Example, you want to, change the structure of a house, you can do that at the foundation. But when the house is completely roofed, and you want to switch the external structures, it's pretty very difficult because you must go back to the foundation, right? So if you have a project, changes can only be done at the beginning, not at the end. We're going to look at how to manage changes because you cannot just change anything at anywhere at any time. You need to make sure the changes go through what they call control. If you don't control changes, don't accept changes, because changes can be very, very dangerous if they have negative influence on the project. Okay, let's look at this now. Phases of a project. Every project goes through 5 phases. I hope you're following me now. Now, the first phase is called initiation. First phase is called what? Initiation. What is initiation? Just launching. Official startup. When a project is to be commenced or is to commence, that project must be commenced officially. I'm going to talk to you about initiation when we go down, all right? In the second module, you need to learn how to initiate or how a project ought to be initiated, all right? Number 2 is planning. What is planning? Planning means step into the future. Use your imagination, use your knowledge. Find out the step-by-step approach, how to accomplish a project goal step by step. You cannot just go into a project without a plan. No matter how you think you have the expertise for the job, you need to have a plan. We're going to look at planning too. Number 3 is executing. The third phase is executing. To execute means to complete the project plan. Move your project from planning into reality, into tangible results. In execution, you spend a lot of money, a lot of resources are needed. Stakeholders will be expecting a lot of output during the execution phase. So you need to know that. Number 4 is controlling. When you execute, you control. Now let me say this here. Execution, number 3, is the job of the team. On a very good project structure, the team executes the project. They must have the skill to implement the plan. You are the one to guide the implementation. In case you are made the project leader or the project manager, this is your job, all right? When the team is executing, you don't execute with the team. You control the execution. And this control must be done phase by phase. You don't control at the end. Oh, let them finish their job. I will check what they are doing. What if there are issues in between when they started and when they ended? Do you understand? So you need to make sure that you check the outcome of the project to be sure it's in alignment with the scope. That's controlling. For me, controlling is the most important part of a project. You can outsource your planning. Stakeholders will plan, all right? Team will execute. But if you lack a controlling personality or a controlling person, that project will go bad. That's why you can have an accountant doing the work of an accountant and also doing the work of an auditor. It doesn't work. The accountant cannot audit his work. He does his accounting job. Then you get an auditor who has the auditing skills just to control. I was told about a company somewhere, in Abuja, Nigeria, where because there was no auditor, the accountant moved as much as $1 million out of the company. They have a revenue of about $1 billion. Sorry, about $10 million, I beg your pardon. And because there was no auditor, for 6 months, $1 million was missing. What did he do with it? Well, he didn't steal it though. He took the money and put into a fixed deposit account since nobody was auditing him for years, so that the money could be yielding interest. And whenever the MD says, please let me see the financial nature or the financial state of my company, he will pull out the money, and of course he may have made some sharp gains. But if you have an auditor who audits within specific timing, that kind of a thing will not happen. You understand what I'm saying now? So controlling is important, all right? So we're going to learn how to control. Number 5, closure. Every project must be closed officially. What's closure? Closure means final official acceptance of a project deliverable. Don't stop a project until it is closed officially. deliverables must be accepted by the stakeholder or by the customer. Are you following? These things are real in the real world. After controlling, don't hand over until there is official acceptance. Another word for closure, please write it down, is called post-mortem. Post-mortem. The word mortem means conclusion. The word post means after. Like we have, postnatal, antenatal, for those who have this knowledge of pregnancy and delivery and all that. Now, when you say postnatal, you're talking about after birth. So once a project is concluded, some things must be done after conclusion. We call it closure. It is official. And please write this one down. Even if a project was not completed to the end, in other words, it was not fully completed, it was abandoned at 50%, 60%, stakeholders must still accept the closure officially. You don't just say, okay, all parties go your way because we couldn't finish the project. No, it must be documented. Now, these are very key things you have to learn. Okay, let's look at this. Definition of terms. We are still in module 1. We'll still round up with this. The first is progressive elaboration. Every project we go through what? Progressive elaboration. It's just 2 words. Look at it here. Number 1, progressive. Okay? 2, elaboration. What does it mean? It means an incremental change. That is progressive. It also means a continuous refinement. That is elaboration. From initial concept until you have a project understanding. What does it mean? Every project will not always be where it is from where it started until where it ended. I don't know if you understand my construction. Things usually changes. So as you see how a project is progressing, you will need to make certain refinement. I'll give you an example. You started a project with an understanding. Let's assume it is a building. That could help us a little. That's not the only project. I'll give you more examples apart from construction, right? You started the project with a client, and your agreement for the project was about 8 million to build maybe a 3-bedroom bungalow, right? And when you did that, had the discussion, the cost of a bag of cement, was 150, and the project was supposed to last for 1 year. But at the 6th month, the price of cement went from 150 to 300. Then the price of blocks was about 130 per 12 inches block, but 6 months later it went to 250 per 12 inches block. What do you do at that juncture? Your 8 million is no longer feasible. It will not do the work. So as you manage projects, and some factors are coming in that will in a way change the reality of that particular initial concept, you need to make refinement. That's the truth. All right? So of course I'll teach you how to do that. Now let me just say this, right? In your project, please create a possibility for what we call open issues. Don't close up projects with any stakeholder, especially if it is going to be to your own advantage. You must have open issues. What are open issues? Open issues are issues that have not been concluded upon, that will always be revisited based on reality or based on strategic changes that could affect the outcome of the project. So that each stakeholder will agree that if the goalpost shift from A to B and B to C, we need to talk and look at what will happen in order to bring back that particular project into its proper alignment, getting towards the end point. Do you understand that? Let's go to number 2, project framework. What's a framework? The word frame and work, you know what it means? It means a guideline. Every project will have a guideline. You can't do a project without a guideline. It is also called the skeletal structure of your project. Number 3, project deliverables. Deliverables are tangible results you get from project phases. So when you hear the word product, another word for product is deliverables. These are professional terms in project management all over the world, all right? So from every phase of your project, you will need to see deliverables. And when you see deliverables, what do you know? Project is over. For every project that delivers deliverables for the stakeholders, that phase is over. All right, we'll talk about that one later. Number 4, stakeholders. Who are stakeholders? there are people or human beings or groups who are interested in your project, or they are affected by the outcome of the project. Let's look at 5 stakeholders. Every project has stakeholders. You are not the one, you can't work alone, you have to work with stakeholders. Number 1, project manager. You are the first stakeholder in your project. You are the one supervising, managing, reporting, interfacing with stakeholders. All right. Number 2, project team. Those that work with you, all right, to deliver the project goal. Number 3, project sponsor. The organizations or individuals who produces or provides the resources needed to implement the project. Number 4, project customer. The customer is a key stakeholder. Number 5, performing organization or project organization. The organization handling the project, for which or through whom the project manager is operating with or for, as the case may be. Now, let's look at these 5 stakeholders. Which of these 5 do you think is the most important stakeholder in the project? Please, this is an assignment. I want you to take it down. You're going to write it, and of course, I will post it in the group. You need to, submit it and let us know what you think. All right? We may even show you what the answer is now, but we need to find out why. Why is it not the project manager? Maybe, why is it the team? Or why do we think, or why do you think it's the sponsor? Because it brings the money. So these stakeholders, everybody's important. But one person among these 5 stakeholders is the most important. What it means is that the whole project hinges on the personality of this stakeholder. All right? So I don't know what your guess is, but when you're going to write the assignment, you can put it there. But I'm more interested in why do you think so? So right now I'm going to tell you the answer, the most important stakeholders. But in the assignment, explain why that particular stakeholder is the most important. Number 1, it is not the project manager. So I rule off number 1. Surprising, right? 2, it's not the project team. The team is fantastic. They are good, great, awesome. 3, it's not a project sponsor. Is that shocking? Yes, he brings the money, I agree, but let's go down. It is not the performing organization. Great. They supervise. They produce all the values needed to move the project forward. They manage the team. Good. The most important stakeholder is the project customer. He is the project customer. So assignment. Why is the project customer the most important person in a project? Write it down and, of course, submit it into the group. We are going to be able to look at it. Please, the statement should not be much. Just be concise and be straight to the point. All right. Let's look at this. What do you do with stakeholders? All the stakeholders that work with you, the community, your team, the sponsor, the organization, your manager, what do you do with them? 1, manage expectations. What do they want? Every stakeholder have what they need. They have expectations. They have their own perception of what they think they need. You need to manage it. You can't just insist and say, this is what must be done. No. If you do like that, you will do the project all by yourself and the stakeholders will reject it. So you must work with stakeholders. Get inputs from them. We're going to talk about that later. Number 2, do what you can to, meet the expectations of the you may not meet the complete expectations. Of course, some expectations may be wrong, yes, some expectations may be wrong. So if expectations are wrong, what do you do to manage expectations? Let's look at let's look at characteristics of projects. How do projects behave? 1, they are demanding. Stakeholders will place a lot of pressure on you. Projects are demanding. So if you are doing a project, you have a lot of pressure. Sometimes you have to do so many things at the same time because there's a deadline. Your stakeholders are expecting the result. The client are waiting. The other party are waiting. You need to produce the result. There can't be any, let's say, announcement of a presidential result until the whole states have collected their results from various wards, various states, various zones, and brought it to the center before the result can be announced. Even though that is quite archaic when you compare to the United States way of announcing results. Every state do their thing and announce on there. But in Nigeria, in Africa, Most countries will always want to bring to the center. Maybe they know their people so well, and they know what may happen if it is done from there. Or maybe they want to do their best to get what they want to get at the center. But that's by the way. All right. Now let's look at this now. Projects are demanding. Number 2, projects have clear requirements. You cannot do a project if you are not sure of the metrics. Don't handle a project until you are clear. In other words, all projects, metrics, expectations, quality requirements must be spelled out and properly documented. You cannot go back and forth in projects. You are doing a project to produce certain things or to reach out to certain clients. You must know what they want and present it exactly. There must be a mutual or mutualistic understanding between you and what your clients are looking for. Number 3, projects have assumptions. What are assumptions? Assumptions are beliefs held to be true but no proof. Any belief you think is correct without a proof is an assumption. A proof does not mean tangibility. No, it means conviction. It means evidential. I give you an example. You got a job with okay, let me say the Hilton, all right, and a guest told you, please, we want to have an outdoor meeting by 6 p.m. in the evening. Please, would like to use the penthouse. Just give us the space at the 10th floor or the 20th floor of the building. We want that view. We want that, air movement and all that. And they paid for it. But they asked you one question and they said, "Are you sure it's not going to rain? What about the weather?" You just laughed and like, weather what? Do you mean rain? And they say, yes. I mean, we just want to know if the weather will be convenient and comfortable for us, so that we don't get to the meeting and it starts raining, because we have dignitaries that are coming from, different locations in the world. And with your little myopic mindset, I mean, not you, I mean, the person who's not trained, who didn't attend this course, right? The person just says, don't worry. For the past 3 months in this city, it's not rained. Everywhere is hot. People are just so uncomfortable. It wouldn't rain tonight. I mean, it's nowhere near raining. And they say, wow, I like your conviction. You are full of confidence. But your confidence was busted as soon as the meeting started. 30 minutes into the meeting, the atmosphere changed. The cloud went black. And they called you again and said, manager, are you still saying that this blackness of this cloud is not a rain? Sir, it has happened like this 50 times in the last 35 days. It has happened. It will go black, go red. Nothing will rain. It was that same night that rain came. And the person's job was put to a lot of question. You know why? The person assumed. Don't assume. You can't use the convictions of the past to make decisions for today. You don't. Assumptions are risky. What should you have done? You should have said, well, from history, it has not rained. But for me to be sure it won't rain today, I may need to consult the meteorological agency or the weather forecast organization to know what the weather forecast today is. That's a professional language. You can't beat your chest and say, I know, I'm sure. You're assuming. You need data. You need metrics. Even if it rains, but you came out with data that it will not rain, you have simply transferred the risk out of yourself into somebody else. Do you understand that? So don't use assumptions until you are clear. You are making a production. You saw a liquid. You thought it's oil. Whereas that liquid is close to acid. You don't use a liquid because it has the same color with what you wanted to use. You don't do that. You need to perform a litmus test on the liquid to confirm that this liquid is actually what it is before you can use it. Is that clear? So don't use assumptions in your project. Number 4, projects are affected by constraints. Constraints are simply, look at it here, constraints, constraints. Constraints, they are things that will limit your project. Anytime you are doing a job that looks like a project, before you dive in with zeal, you have understood the requirements, yes. You have removed all assumptions. You must know your constraints. You know why? Anytime you disregard, ignore, or you are oblivious of constraints, the project will come to an abrupt suspension. What does it mean? You must understand things that will make the project fail. They are simply, look at the triangle. The first one is the scope. Second one is the cost. The third one is the time. Scope, cost, and time. There could be others. Quality, human beings, risk could be a constraint. So find out what the constraint is. If a project is supposed to cost you 20,000 naira, all right, and you don't have up to 20K, you have only 1,000. That's the financial constraint. So we're going to talk about cost management. You can always manage constraints. Look at scope. You were asked to recruit 20 people within 5 days. On the third day, you got a letter from a mail from your head office asking you to recruit 40 against 20. That's a scope constraint. They've increased your scope. You were supposed to just, in fact, you are done almost documenting. They asked you to add extra 20. So you have to start calling back people again, starting from the beginning. That can be very hectic. But there is a way to manage constraints. That's why you are taking this lecture, so that you can be able to know what to do when these constraints come around. Look at time. The time is a huge constraint. Let's go to the last part of module 1. Very quickly, process interaction. Every project must interact. Now, hear this very clearly. You cannot manage a project, excuse me, without a process. A process moves the project from project to product. I'll take it again. The process moves the project. That is the work you're going to do. You need to go through a process to get your product. And that process is defined as the task that must be undertaken that will produce the result. Does it make sense? Now, you can also put, if you like, that project management also means process management. I mean, that will also mean that. But your job as a project manager or an assistant manager or a project team or a project lead or a team lead is to ensure that processes are qualitatively executed. I mean, that's your job. And moreover, too, you can't get results in any part of life if you don't understand the process. All processes that are properly executed will lead to the right product. Is that okay? Let's look at interaction. Your processes must interact. There must be a reaction, an interreaction, a positive interrelationship between every element in your process. So you don't just bring in anything into anything. It doesn't work. Whatever that will not work in your job, don't let it work. In other words, eliminate things that don't work on time, because they will not get you the results you need. Does it make sense? I'm trying to break it down. I'll give you an example, then I look at these 3 things on your screen. Are you there? Look at this example. I mean, I'm bringing it to the lowest level that we can get it, right? Before I give you professional examples, okay? Now, you are supposed to, if you're not a Nigerian, and I mean, you're not part of in Africa, there's a soup we call vegetable soup. It's full of vegetables. I mean, leaves, they call it fluted pumpkin, they have water leaf, they have snails, they have fish, they have oil, and it's, properly done. It's locally called a dikainko, right? Now, if you are given a project to produce a dikainko, I mean, forgive me, right, for a particular group of people, okay, and they paid hugely for it, and they really want to enjoy a sumptuous edikaiko, then somebody else now said, please have an edikaiko that will contain some stones. Those stones will make the edikaiko to be so sweet and delicious. And they ask you, what is the purpose of the stone? You say, well, I don't really know, but my traditional people, they like putting stones. I don't just know why, but when they put stone, it tastes better. Now, ladies and gentlemen, an edikaiko that has stones inside, that is purposeless, in parentheses, and an edikaiko that has the usual, the fish, the dry fish, the snails, the periwinkles, and all that. Which one will you really want to go for? The stone full one or the stoneless one? I am just preempting that 80%, except those who are curious about what doesn't make sense, they just want to have an idea of a senseless idea, right? They will want to go to pick the stone soup just to know what the stone soup look like. Full of stones? Well, I don't understand it, but for me, I think 80% will go for the Edikaiko that is stoneless. Let's come back to the subject matter. What is wrong with the one with the stone? What is the problem with the stone Edikaiko? It's very simple. The stone does not react. It does not give anything. It does not take anything. That sounds very funny, right? Now, the stone does not absorb the soup and it has nothing to give. So what is it doing in the soup? It's just been traditionally put in there for one superstitious idea, right? Now, let's come back to project management. If you are managing a project and you are working in the office and certain things you are doing are not working, they are rather taking you back in the thing you are doing. Boom, stop that particular project process because it's not interacting. That's just at the lowest level. But let's look at it professionally. There are 3 things you need to make a process to interact. 1, you must find out, divide your process into 3. First process is called the input. Second one is called, look at it here, the tools and the technique. The third one is the output. What are the inputs? Inputs are the documents that you need, the items, the materials, the ingredients, the basic requirements, the critical foundational ideas, and information that you need to work on. You can't just start a project from anywhere, from the air. You need basic ingredients to work on. Don't forget you are transferring, you are translating, you are metamorphosing the materials or the inputs or the project into a product. So you are going to have something to work on before you can have something to produce. Do you understand that? So the tools and techniques, they are simply the methodologies you need to produce the result. So you use the tools and techniques to act on the input, then you can have the output. In summary, input plus tools and techniques will lead to what? Output. If you want results, find out what is the expected result. Then find out what are the ingredients in the result. Then find out what is the methodology or the techniques or the technology or the strategic mechanism or the way, the know-how on how the job is being done to produce the result. And you are there. For example, you're looking at a loaf of bread. Oh, what a loaf. Do you know what a loaf of bread is? A loaf of bread is equal to a combination of flour, a combination of milk, a combination of sugar, if you want it, depending on the kind of bread you want to produce, a combination of several combinations, plus a technological process that the flour went through the dough production, went through kneading, went through shaping, went through, being in the oven, and it came out before it became sliced. I mean, that's simple. So if you know the ingredients and you know the processes, you will get the result. Q-E-D. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to believe that you have been able to understand the basics and the foundation of project management, so that by the time we get into module 2, module 3, we are going to be running, we're going to be flying, we're going to be cruising at a very fantastic altitude. Is that okay? All right. So in a summary, just understand that project management involves that you take a job, supervise it, plan it, control it until the product is produced. But for you to produce it, you must go through the right processes. You must work with stakeholders. You must avoid assumptions. You must be clear with the requirements. You must ensure that you go through progressive elaboration from time to time. You must follow the different phases of the project. And you must understand your role as a project manager. All right. So thank you very much. You can also listen to this video again and go through it, take your notes, and I wish you all the best. So I will be expecting you in the second module. Thank you.